when you went to buy a hat, it was a hat shop you went to. And of course they had lots of hats from, any price, but the dearest, most of them were 4 shillings and 11 pence, which was quite a lot of money. But you could try on all the hats for that, but what you wanted. But it was very nice, and it gave you quite a thrill to try on different hats, They had velour hats quite often, and they were nice, sort of thing. Mind you, they varied in price. Just varied in, you could have a woolen one at 1 and 11 pence sort of thing. But now, we never bother with a hat, I wouldn't have gone to the shops without my hat on, wasn't done. So that was it.
Some sort of hats, might you have had a hat pin that to keep it on?
Oh yes, but you didn't always need a hat pin, but you usually had it in your hat, somewhere, because if the wind blew, you stuck the pin in. Oh yes, you needed hat pins. I forgot about them, quite honestly.
So where would you have worn a hat? Did you wear a hat everywhere or just...
I wore a hat more or less all the time. When you went out, you wore a hat. Even going out shopping, just to the local shops, you still put on your hat. And, thank goodness we don't bother with these things nowadays. But oh no, you put your hat on. You weren't dressed if you didn't have a hat on. Oh, there we are. It's amazing how things change, isn't it?
So when I came home from the army, my husband had these coupons for clothes, and his father, and they gave me coupons. So I was able to go, and I didn't have a proper married clothes and all that. I was able to go to Aberystwyth, and I remember I bought a nice blue suit, and they gave me the coupons to give to the shop, which was quite, and there was a nice shop that was there then. It was near Woolworths, on that side. There was a nice clothes shop there just before you get up to Woolworths. And that's where I bought my suits, it was nice blue.
Yes. Well, Hodges was a lovely men's shop, where they made these suits and things. I remember my husband had 1 or 2 suits there, and they had to go in for fittings and things like that. So it was lovely. And I also remember lovely shops again, J.J. Morris's at the top of Great Arcade Street. They had 2 lovely shops.
Yes. What did they sell? What did they sell?
Clothes.
Right.
Well, for men and for women. And the clothes were, of the thick kind, a lot of thick ones, nice woolen ones. Yes. And when people went to town, when old women went to town, I remember my aunt, I was taking her to town, and that's the first place she went to. She knew what she wanted, she knew she'd have it there. And then she sat there then for an hour. And when you paid for something there, and in a lot of the other shops, they gave you something, like a pair of stockings, a few handkerchiefs, but always there was something. If they didn't, the person would ask, couldn't you give me something? So they go straight away and give it to you. Something small, you see. Stockings.
So when your husband went to have his suit made, then
Well, he had picked he had picked the cloth, which he wanted to do. So they fitted him then. He had to go into our fittings, and then it would be ready to take a few weeks, I suppose, And they were lovely then. He looked so nice in the new suits. Yes. And that was the men's shop. Hodges was the men's shop. I don't think they saw that. Great acting.
All I know is that when we went to Kidderminster, there was a Hodges tailor, and people used to go and have clothes made, usually in Hammersmith.
Every say big town, every town
But have a tailor, wouldn't they?
would have
They'd
a
all have.
Hodges.
Oh, okay.
It was what they call it today, like a Dorothy Perkins
Yeah.
or Top
Yeah.
Shop.
But the
Because
girl
it was
who,
Hodges
the
then.
girl who I knew from there was called Jo Hodges. So it was obviously her father who was running it, you see, doing the shop.
Okay.
And she took over the bridal club and I was there. We went there for our hacky jackets. They measured us all up for these hacky jackets with a split in back, you know.
Yeah.
Nice Harris tweed. And even little Jane was only about that high. She had a little hacky jacket as well. Those were the days.
We went on a Sunday to Aberystwyth, and as you walked along the prom, you used to recognise the hats on these people that were walking. And my husband and I, well, we were courting then, I used to tell my husband, that hat came from my shop, and that hat came from our shop. I used to recognise the hats and things like that. It was happy times.
Firstly, about the Lion Hotel.
Yes, that's right. During the war, at the beginning of the war, it was taken over by the, I don't know whether it was the RAF or the army, the military anyway. And they were full, well, most of the hotels in town were taken over, even on the prom. Nearly every hotel was taken over. And I think the owner bought a farm in Llangwirfon. That's about 10 miles away.
What's his name?
Craven.
Craven. That's it.
Yes.
I used to sell a cappuccino, the best in town. I had a machine, you know, to make a tea and a coffee. Yeah, I used to sell everything. Cake, ice cream, everything. Those days are gone. Terrible. Aye.
Well, it's a similar story to Mary's really, because when I was allowed out, which wasn't very often because I misbehaved myself all the time, so I got grounded, but I went with the Sylvia Hughes, who was living in the Dower House across the way in Birch Grove, and we used to catch the bus, go into town, and the first stop was Ward's Cafe. In there, no stopping to Ward's, and we used to have tea, and oh dear, yes, the cakes. I always used to have a meringue, one big meringue. I think they saw me coming because they'd go, she's back, a meringue. I used to have this meringue. Then we'd go off to the pictures and we'd have sweets or something in there, you know. And when that was finished, we'd rush out and we'd get fish. Well, no, we didn't have fish. We had chips in newspaper, and go on the bus. And at the back seat, so we wouldn't get told off for eating chips on the bus. And we'd sit there and eat these lovely chips and home. And that was, perhaps I was allowed to do it once a month, if I'd been good. If I hadn't, I didn't. So that was a happy memory of ABBA, you know, that was, that I remember. It was a very happy memory.
Opposite the station, there's a fish and chip shop now. There's Jackson's Cafe opposite the station, and you could either sit downstairs or you could go upstairs where the big windows are like that, and you could sit upstairs. There's tables and chairs upstairs. So we'd go there for a coffee first, before, especially if it was raining,
to stay standing outside the station, go there for a coffee first. Or what we used to do when I was a bit older, Jackson's was famous because Ardwin was in town. For if you were Mitch in school, you'd go upstairs in Jackson's. But they had curtains at the side, so you wouldn't sit in the window because somebody would see you across the road. You'd sit at the back, but there'd be one person behind the curtain looking out to see if there were any teachers or prefects or anybody hanging about. We all used to meet, we used to be about 8 of us. We'd meet outside the station, always meet outside the station, because we'd all catch buses from different places. We'd meet there, and then we'd go to the cinema, and there was always a queue, and as I said, there's all those steps to walk up, and there's like a door with like a hole in it, and there's always the same old lady that took you in, and she was so miserable. I don't think I'd ever seen her smile. And the girls used to try and get there before the boys and all that. And I can't remember how much it was, but you paid a little bit extra to go up to the balconies. As I said, we used to throw sweets down on the boys underneath and all that. And halfway, they'd show like a short film, and before the main film came on, there'd be this woman walking around with a tray with the ice creams.
The Lion Royal Hotel. I remember that. During the war it was taken over, and with the military, or the RAF, the whole lot of them went in there. We married in April 1943. The day of our marriage, my grandmother died, so we couldn't go away. We were supposed to go to Plymouth. My wife's father was a naval officer stationed in Plymouth, so we were supposed to go there. And because my grandmother died, we had to stay. And there was no hotel in Aberystwyth for us to stay in. We had to stay in a lodging, because the billet, it was full. Thousands of troops here, you know. If you went down to the prom, you'd see them, squads marching past the castle grounds, and you'd have them there, fixed bayonets, you know, training. And you couldn't get a hotel in town, you see. They were all taken over by the RAF and the army, you know, for training.
Wake up, wake up!
I can remember I got a job as secretary, and at Christmas they gave me £10, an extra £10, and out of that £10 I bought my father a bottle of whiskey, which was 12 and 6pence. My mother flowers, and I got the flowers delivered to the value of £1, and I had 2 sisters and a brother, and I bought them all something, and I still had £5 to spend on myself. I bought a skirt and a jacket and a hat, and they were good ones.
Lewis yn gyfer... Chi'n cofio Lita Lewis? Cofio Mr Lewis yn iawn.
O, dych chi?
Ar wraig, oedd hi mwy tew. Ac yn ddynes, chi'n bod chi'n mwf am eto, ac oedd hi gwbl o pob beth ar shelfs. Allan nhw'n lan yr ysgol, a moyn popeth o'ch chi so. Ond nhw yn gwd.
A oedd nhw popeth fyna oedd isen o'ch chi o ran dillad, oedd?
Oedd, well quality.
Reit.
Chi'n brynu bethau Woolworth. Oedd nhw'n trip bach falle, ond nhw'n ymgystal.
You never did a lot of shopping. not for food. You didn't have supermarkets. So you always had village shops, and they always delivered. And when you had say it was the war, and you could only have so-and-so, it would only come to 11 shillings, it did. So they delivered that. So you didn't have to carry much in the basket then. No, just your little bits. I've never been in Morrison's. I couldn't go in there. I'd get confused.
Oedd mam yn mynd I dre falle pob pythefnos ar y bus, a faint oedd y bus to bed? 1 and 7 ar ddi llun a 2 and 2 bob dynod arall. Falle bydde dydal mynd I dre di llun a mam yn mynd wedyn, ond pob pythefnos.
So tell us, Maureen, about the payment method. You know, you were just talking earlier about how you used to pay in these grocery shops. Can you just...
Yes, I can't remember which shop it was.
Okay.
They possibly all did it, but I've got a feeling it was Lipton's.
Yes, Lipton's.
Yeah.
Lipton's, yes.
And
I
then
got a
you
remember
do
the
your shopping. I mean, there wasn't like supermarkets today. You know, there were assistants behind the counters, and you went to one, and you told them what you wanted, and they would tot it up on a bit of paper. You would pay, and then it was, say if you handed them a 10 shilling note,
yes,
something
like, yes, like
that. They take the top off,
yeah,
and they put the money in,
yeah.
and
right round the shop.
Yes. Well, not till receipt, the little receipt that they'd added it all up, and they screwed it then into like
another lid,
a tube thing. And they had like a lavatory tray.
That's right.
You know, the old-fashioned lavatory tray.
And they pulled them.
They pull that and it would whiz round
up
to the cashiers. And then, of course, when it got to the cashier, she would open
Take it down, yes.
And then say you needed, 10 shillings, I've got to think now. Say you needed 5 shillings change. She would put the 5 shillings in and pull the chain.
It is back.
Back it would come.
Yeah.
But,
we had it in Co-op in Penparky, and my children remember that.
Yeah. But it was fascinating to see.
Yes.
It used to like ding, hadn't
Yes.
it? And you hear it whirring round.
It was amusing to go shopping.
£40 tailors. Benno nhw lot o local dwell. 40 shilling suits o'n nhw'n neud, ready-made. O, nhw'n noted dros o wlad echan. O'n nhw'n siwr o fod ar ôl yrfel. A nhw'n big firm, siop da nhw, oedd. Siop da nhw a oedd agents da nhw gweld. A rhaid ni'n fod yn mesur chi ar suits yn dod ôl. Fi braidd yn siŵr yn mesur. 40 shillings o'n nhw.
And we used to go to Tiverdale's, you see. When it was Saturday night, we used to go in and get 2 penn'orth of stale cakes. Supposed to be. They were fresh.
Weda I chi am bwyty ni yn Lipton's, oedd tad Susan. Oedd e wedi dod lan, oedd e ddim yn dda iawn, a roedd y pint di'n chwel, dim ond pint o dda fe. Oedd ei wraig, mam Susan, wedi rhoi pint iddo fe, I moyn caws neu, wel, rhywbeth oedd e moyn, rhywbeth bach fel na. A papur pint, a roed y papur pint, a nhw'n gweud 10 shillings, ding! Lan fy draw ar 10 shillings. It's not 10 shillings, wedodd e. It's a pound I gave you, wedodd e. A wedodd e, no. Cidio tad Susan neu goler e, a marcho fe across the street i'r police station. A wedodd e bod hwn probably isn't the first time he's done it, but he's done it to the wrong chap. I only had a bloody pound, wedodd e. A fe ceio nhw wedyn, neu ceio nhw fawr ar dro ar ôl ni.
And you had like the front of Humphrey Jones was like all the expensive crockery and stuff like that, everything like that. And then there'd be so everyday stuff. They used to sell everything, their washing powder, everything. And right at the very back of the shop, that's where they had, you could buy just a piece, say you wanted to do one shelf, you could buy a piece of wood, just one piece of wood. And if they didn't have the size you wanted, they'd take you out the back door. They had a yard out the back, and they used to cut the wood to the size that you wanted. And they used to have them all round like that. There'd be screws, nails, everything. And there'd be a set of screwdrivers, different sizes and all that, or you could just buy one screwdriver. And they'd be on that side, and then you'd go down the step and there'd be all the kitchen stuff. But the middle stuff was like whatever they were trying to get rid of. They'd have the sales and all that. And then they decided to open a children's department. So if you wanted a bicycle, you went to Humphrey Jones.
Well, I worked in a drapery shop and I had the milliner, and her husband was Irish, Mr. Dewar, and I worked in the shop and they were selling hats and everything. And now then she was a milliner, you see, so she used to send me out, go chat and see what that. And then used to say, try them on for us. Will you, Jane? Will you try them on to see what I like? And if I tried them on, she sold more hats.
Pob siop ar ysgol ar mwyn cadw pethau fel allai neb dod mewn y siop ac ydion dim byd wedyn chybod yna lle. Chybod dyn tal yn dod y siop, allai wraig i fod hynny fach yn prynu pethau, allai fe fod yn dynnu pethau lawr. Rho gofan te.
Oedd y ddynes yn Devil's Bridge yn gwerthu lot o ddillad merched a merched mwyn y dynion te. Siop Oliver o'n i'n galw hi. Miss Oliver oedd hi. Oedd hi thad na o'i blan hi fi'n credu. Bues i mewn y siop rhyw ddwrnod. A o'n i'n gweld neb yn siop. A wyto tyn bach. Is i mewn trwy drws canol mewn yn y gegin. A o'n i'n gweld i'n iste nôl yn stôl. Es i ati wedyn. Oedd hi wedi marw.
I can remember being sent up to Mr. Evans, and he had the size of bacon with a muslin round, and Auntie Mary wants 2 slices of bacon in Welsh. And he'd get his huge knife out and roll the muslin back and start cutting, slicing the meat. I still remember that. And in the summer, you know, in the hot weather, and the flies that used to be round it. And you never had any sickness.
But you've got to remember the bacon and things were well salted before they were hanged up.
I'll tell you a joke about eggs. Just at the end of the war, farmers were selling eggs, you know, if somebody came and wanted a dozen. But a lady from Devil's Bridge way heard that this inspector was coming round, so she went to Aberystwyth, went to Woolworth, and brought 2 or 3 dozen China eggs, right? And after a few days, the inspector came to the farm and said, "Can I have a dozen eggs?" Yes, she said, "you can have 2 dozen if you like." "Oh, right then, we'll have 2 dozen. And she gave them 2 dozen China eggs. "There we are. I'm going to book you for selling eggs. You're not supposed to sell eggs." "Oh, you can have another dozen if you like. They're China eggs, you see." And she couldn't do a thing with her, you know, with China eggs. And that's a true story. Taylor Lloyd, yeah. Taylor Lloyd was my commanding officer in the Home Guard.
He was lovely, wasn't he? And his wife.
He was the zone commander, not only Aberystwyth and Cardiganshire, but the whole zone.
And he used to take photographs of the sunsets in Aber. He thought the sunsets in Aber were beautiful, and he was always taking photographs of them.
And his son-in-law after that. His son-in-law was a great photographer. He was an officer in the RAF.
And the other thing you were telling me about was Taylor Lloyd, the chemist.
Oh yes, Taylor Lloyd. Well, he was a chemist in town here, but during the First World War he was a colonel in the army, and he was awarded MC for bravery during the war, you see, the First World War. But at the beginning of the Second World War, he was one of, he and the Lord Lisburn and somebody else, I think it was an MP, they started the Home Guard. They started going about the Home Guard in 1940, that was. Yeah.
And you were you were a member?
Yes, I was the youngest officer in Dad's army. He always used to call me the baby of the family.